Hello, I'm Anne Lalong with Naropa's Approaches to Healing class. And today I have with us Dr. Justin Pollack from the mountain town of Frisco, Colorado, who has a naturopathic practice up there. Welcome, Dr. Pollack. So glad to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me, Anne. Yeah, it's really great to be with you and Naropa University.
Super.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that you would start just talking a little bit about yourself and your professional background.
Well, gosh, I kind of got into this whole thing because my mom was really into herbalism, and we were out on the West Coast, and so I grew up in Oregon, and she grew an organic garden and was friends with an herbalist and kind of holistic healers in our community, and that really fascinated me. I was really drawn to any sort of work that was with nature, with people, kind of, and it's kind of become my life's work to, help with the healing of people and this planet that we live on. So I looked at ways that I could do that and combine it all, and naturopathic medicine seemed like a really good fit. And so as I went through school, I was good at science, and and ended up at the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. And one of my teachers said, whoa, slow down, Justin. You don't have to be like on this pre-med track, just like right off the bat. You should just explore the world and get to know what's happening, and see if this is really what you want to do. And I ended up doing a lot of outdoor education and, working in a lot of various fields like that, being a kayak instructor, even taking 5 years of kind of gap years between my undergraduate and my graduate school. And I still circled back around. I was like, I still want to be a naturopathic doctor. And yeah, so went to naturopathic school in Seattle, Washington, from 1995 to 1999. Got a residency back down in my home state of Oregon in Portland for a year. Met my wife, Dr. Kim Nearpass, and we traveled together, and all kinds of stuff. And she's from Denver, and we ended up looking at little mountain towns where we could live, for the next several years while she was finishing up school and I was working in Oregon, and settled on Frisco, Colorado, and I have not looked back. It's just been wonderful.
It's, I know, really sort of old to say, but you're living the dream, and you have been. It sounds really awesome.
Boy, every time I look out the window, and unless it's just like a complete blizzard, most of the time I'm looking out the window, I'm like, yeah, I'm living my best life. It's
Beautiful.
pretty nice up here.
And so you and Kim started a naturopathic clinic up in Frisco.
Yes. Yeah. So right when we moved here in 2003, we opened up the Mountain River Naturopathic Clinic. It kind of spoke to our big interests in mountains, and we both are kayakers and rafters, and yeah, get out on the mountains as much as we can. So yeah, started going with that, and we've got this amazing college up here, the Colorado Mountain College, which is in a lot of different communities throughout the mountain region. And I thought, well, while we're building our practice, why don't I become an adjunct faculty there and teach their human nutrition course? So I started teaching human nutrition the first winter that we got here, and then that just snowballed into teaching anatomy and physiology. And then I was kind of a very active adjunct for a good decade. And then they had a science position open, so I applied, and they hired me on as a science faculty. So I'm now teaching all kinds of science courses, and the college, and being a professor now, I'm now a full-time professor there, has become my full-time gig, and my practice, so here in my practice office, has become my part-time gig. But it's really wonderful. Like this semester, we had this kind of microbiologist and biologist retire, and so part of his position got replaced by an ecosystem scientist biologist, and the microbiology part of it, she really didn't have the training. So I was, my dean said, hey, can you teach this? And so this semester I'm teaching microbiology for the first time. And I haven't, you know, done microbiology for about 25 years.
Oh boy.
It's just so exciting. But it's so fun because I love, all the new research out there, and the connections that are happening with the microbiome, not only in our bodies, but on the planet, and all the things that the microbiome does that is so incredibly helpful, to us and, the health of our planet. Pretty neat. So it's really fun to study it, even though it's given me some long nights.
Oh, I bet. It's an exciting subject. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm, continuing to teach and continuing, part-time here at the office to see patients, and both of them are really rewarding. And I like the mix of it because, I don't get bored going back and forth between the two.
And I hope you're still getting some kayaking in.
Yes, I am. Yeah, it's been really fun.
So would you spend a moment, I don't know if everybody knows what a naturopath or an ND is compared to maybe an MD, just a
Okay.
little bit of the difference in training and the way that you perceive practice.
Okay. Yeah, good question. If people haven't been exposed to NDs before, we're nice doctors. Um, we are, it's known as a naturopathic doctor or a naturopathic doctorate. And we go through the same pre-med training as a medical doctor or a doctor of osteopathic. So 4 years there in undergrad, or in my case, I took 5 years to do it, because I was doing some outdoor education, independent contracts and stuff. Um, but then we go into a separate graduate school. So just like down in the Front Range, there is Rocky Vista University School of Osteopathic Medicine. So they train DOs and physician's assistants. So a doctor of osteopathic, is very much like a medical doctor in most states, and they're going to be able to prescribe and do surgery and all that kind of stuff. Naturopathic doctors have been around for a long time, and it's a profession where I'd say we're kind of a bridge between alternative and holistic things, from herbalism and homeopathy and acupuncture and all that kind of stuff, and the medical world of just drugs and surgery, that kind of thing. And so we incorporate a lot of things. And in our schooling, holy cow, our graduate school is really rigorous. I had a really good friend I kayaked with during my graduate school program, who was going through his medical training at University of Washington, and I was taking many more credits than he was, and I was just like, "What? This is not fair," because we were learning the pharmacology for prescribing drugs, we were learning minor surgery, we were learning homeopathy and nutrition and herbalism, and the basics of Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. We were learning how to manipulate the spine like old osteopaths would, or chiropractors would. And so we know how to speak that language, and the language of pharmacology and minor surgery. And then as far as like our ability to practice, it's a wide range, because you go to a state like California, Oregon, or Washington, and you'll find naturopaths who are part of the medical system and can prescribe whatever, have DEA licenses and do minor surgery, and very much practice like medical doctors or DOs maybe. But in a way, those worlds are kind of blending, as we see medical doctors who are no longer having their clinics rated by the FDA for prescribing nutrients, becoming more functional medical doctors. And you're seeing naturopaths moving more towards prescribing more medications and things like that. Or you can be in a state like, many of the southern states in the United States where naturopathy is not licensed. Old naturopaths used to get put in jail for doing, their there are alternative therapies and things like that. And I don't think that's outside the realm of what could happen in some states. In states like Colorado, we're now, we have a registration. It's sort of like a step towards licensure in a lot of ways. We're registered to diagnose and treat patients. And so we can use lab work, all that kind of thing. But we're not licensed to prescribe any medications. We are licensed, of all things, we are licensed to do minor surgery. And I haven't practiced that for a good 20 years. So I don't do that. But we've got all of our herbals, all of our homeopathics, all of our nutritional supplements and dietary approaches, and that's really what I love to do anyway. So we end up focusing mostly on the whole person, and as a naturopath, I'd say that because on a federal level we're not covered by Medicare, Medicaid, we end up having to be mostly a cash practice, and there's going to be national healthcare insurance plans, HSAs, flex spending accounts that will cover us. But one of the challenges to being a naturopath or a clinician of any sort that's not covered by insurance for the most part is figuring out a way to have people who aren't necessarily just rich beyond what their wildest dreams come to your practice and be able to afford your medicine and that kind of thing. So that's one of the challenges that we face, and we end up, I forget where I was going to go with that, but go ahead. And,
but definitely it's the people's medicine, but if the people can't afford it, it's a huge dance. Yeah.
So good point. And one of the things that we really encourage all the people in our community is to come in, and we will offer an interest-free payment plan for as little as $50 a month if people want to come in and see us. And we'll give people who aren't insured or who are low income sliding scale discounts based on their income. And so we hope that helps them with their ability to come in and see us.
That's lovely. In Oregon and Washington, where the two big schools are and the medicine's a little bit different, is naturopathy covered by insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Colorado is just quite different, and it took a long time for you to get registration out here.
Oh my goodness, yeah. My wife left for naturopathic school, and there was the Colorado Association of Naturopathic Doctors was working with the legislature on licensure, and it was hard back then because we were an unlicensed state. So there's going to be battles from both sides. We were kind of like on that razor's edge in the center. There was people who from the medical community just did not want to see naturopaths get licensed, and there was people who went to online, kind of getting credit for life experience, naturopathic doctors that were unaccredited from unaccredited schools and didn't really have more, like a graduate school level training, who were fighting that licensure as well. And so it was really tough. My wife came out of naturopathic school, and she thought, oh, for sure they're going to get licensure by the time I'm out of school. And no, it was another decade after, it was a good couple decades of working with the legislature and the Colorado Association of Naturopathic Doctors. The presidents changed hands many times, and many legislative committees worked on this, and it took so much. Some of those political things in medicine are tough to navigate.
Right.
And I suppose that's part of what I would say to anybody who's listening to this class is, part of being in medicine is the politics of medicine, and a lot of times the the MD/DO world and all the money that's behind that with pharmaceuticals and with insurance companies is a huge powerhouse in our political system, and it's it's always been. I mean, you look back hundreds of years. That's always been that battle. Even when MDs did not have much schooling, and back 200 years ago, bloodletting was the practice, and leeches and things like that, and the holistic healers that naturopaths kind of derived from, that included herbalists and homeopaths and eclectic physicians and all kinds of various holistic therapies that weren't bloodletting or that kind of thing. Um, all kind of fell by the wayside with the advent of penicillin and antibiotics and things like that. And
Right.
and there's always been that battle. It probably always will be, I think. And so, I wouldn't say that being a naturopathic doctor is a quick path to fame and riches and all that kind of thing. But the one of the things that I love about it is that it's a medicine of the heart. It's a medicine of what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about helping people and keeping a natural approach, it's an amazing way to approach life, for your own health and for the health of the others in the planet.
I love that. Medicine for the heart. It's so expressive, and to help people heal themselves as opposed to going in and, being the one that rides in on the horse and prescribes the whatever it is that somebody needs for the day, that you're going in at a much deeper level.
Yeah, that's another thing that I wanted to mention about naturopathy is that most of the time, and one of the ways that, well, here in our clinic, my wife, Dr. Kim Nearpass, our new doctor that joined us, Dr. Lisa Pomerantz, and myself, all really focus on the holistic part of naturopathic medicine, and we look at each person as a whole. And so people are oftentimes really happily surprised to come to a doctor here at the clinic, and instead of just having their digestive tract looked at, because some people will come to us for digestive problems. It creates chronic issues that oftentimes don't get resolved. They'll instead of treating us like a gastroenterologist, who then, when it comes to that mind gut connection, is going to send them off to a neurologist or a cardiologist or an EENT. We look at all those things combined, or an endocrinologist. And oftentimes we're sadly disappointed at some of the stories that come in with our patients of people who've been to the endocrinologist, and they're suffering horrible fatigue, and their adrenals are run down, and their thyroid is not working quite right, and their thyroid medication isn't quite right. And all these things are happening, but there hasn't been enough tests done. All of a sudden we find that they've got an autoimmune thyroid issue, and their adrenals have been working overtime to keep the metabolism going. And so when we put all those things together, people are like, wow, I really like this holistic approach. And that's where I was going with the financial piece, is that being a cash practice and not being tied to, getting 30 cents on the dollar back from insurance companies and having to see 30, 40 patients a day. We spend 1 to 2 hours with our patients. The first visit is a couple hours, and we really get to know their history. We do their physical exam. We think about what labs we should be doing, if any. If they've got labs they come in with, we don't necessarily need to repeat all of them if they've been in the last little bit of time. So
phenomenal to spend a couple of hours as opposed to 10 or 15 minutes, half of which is writing a script and charting, when you see a standard physician so much of the time.
Yes. Yeah. So we see ourselves as a bridge, and be able to, we can talk with people about what their medical doctor is talking about, and we can talk about the wind heat invasion that the acupuncturist is talking about, and kind of put these things together, you know, and say, this is this makes sense from our perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
So when somebody comes in to see you, so you're doing this very involved health history, probably a fairly standard idea for most of it, but then you go off on tangents depending on what the person is describing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. We'll oftentimes, um, just ask at the end of a visit, have we addressed your issues? Do you have any other questions? If I had a magic wand, what would we be doing here? And sometimes something that wasn't even on the intake that they're really concerned about, they'll bring up, and then we'll be like, oh, okay, let's stop and let's address that, or let's address that when we come back in and we've got this treatment plan going for a little while.
Mhm.
But a lot of times, so many people just need to start with a clean slate, and so we'll put somebody on a very clean diet for 2 weeks to 4 weeks or something like that. And um, like, especially folks that are just, they're eating pretty healthy. Like up here in the county where we live, in Summit County, we've got a lot of people who are pretty healthy and do a fair bit of exercise, and are doing a lot of the basics to begin with. But sometimes we can just take that and take away that bag of supplements, and then have them stop the coffee and stop the sugar and stop the alcohol and anything like that for just a month, and stop, maybe, I don't know, maybe the dairy or the wheat or something that's congesting them or upsetting their digestive tract, or putting that extra stress that's creating inflammation in the body. So a lot of times we'll start with that, and that's a very easy, basic thing. Not easy for a lot of people, but
Yeah, easy in one way, but yeah, not in practice.
yeah.
And then you have a whole host of things that you mentioned but haven't necessarily described yet, and other things that are in your tool bag that haven't talked about yet. So what are some of the things that you use in addition to diet and perhaps, well, lifestyle? I would imagine is there, you address sleep and potentially overexercise up in Summit.
Right. Yes. Yeah, we've got some hardcore athletes up here. um I don't know if would it help if I showed our website to people, like I could share the screen or anything like
Sure, that would be great. And you've got such a beautiful picture of your apothecary on the
that?
home page if somebody's never seen an apothecary before. So
And
just tell me where you would like me to navigate for you on that.
okay, well, that's kind of fun to see, just the apothecary that we prescribe from. And our tagline for our clinic is treat the cause, not the symptoms, naturally. And so we try to do it both naturally, and we'd like people to do that in general, is treat those causes of disease. So dig down to what those things are. And you can just scroll down on that page a little
From
bit.
this picture here, for people who have never seen an apothecary, can you describe just a little bit left to right of what we're looking at?
Oh, absolutely. So on the left, we've got the counter where people would check out, and that's going to be our the front desk person checks out our patients and greets people and all that kind of thing. Behind that desk is going to be a bunch of tincture bottles with herbs that have been soaked in a mixture of usually alcohol and water for a good month or so, and it makes a really strong herbal blend that you only have to take maybe 2 dropperfuls to be as strong as a cup of tea or a capsule of herbs, probably a couple capsules of herbs. And so we will blend, maybe anywhere, we'll just give people 1 herb to blending up to maybe a half a dozen herbs together into a 1 or 2 ounce bottle, and it has a dropper top on it, and people can take that as their medicine. Along that wall as well, in the left, is our homeopathics. and those are diluted formulas to stimulate the healing power of nature, the vis medicatrix naturae, from inside to heal a person, from the inside out. And then right behind the counter, there's a row of bottles. Those range from 4 and 8 ounce bottles for people that want to have a lot of their tincture to last for a while. If they live a ways away, we might fill up one of those big bottles. And then there's 2 ounces, 1 ounce, things like that. Straight ahead in the apothecary are 1 gallon jars that are filled with all kinds of herbs. They just go A to Z and in alphabetical order by common name there. So we keep our herbs by our Western common names for them, and we don't carry maybe something really expensive like ginseng, which Asian ginseng, Korean ginseng, even American ginseng, costs more than gold per ounce often. So we don't keep any of that in plain herbal form, but we'll keep other adaptogenic herbs that help the entire body. When I say adaptogenic, it helps all systems of the body, like ashwagandha, really good one. Rhodiola, eleutherococcus, which is known as kind of a Siberian ginseng. Those are all ones that we would keep there on that shelf, as well as things that just make things taste good, like mint, which we've got peppermint and spearmint. We've got things that taste good and help other systems, like you've got licorice root there, you've got sarsaparilla and sassafras that make things taste like root beer. And as we move over to the right side of the apothecary, we're going to see just plain old teas that would just be, we've got black and green and oolong teas and white teas, rooibos teas, chais, and then some mixes of teas that our staff has put together, things that people commonly come in for, like urinary tract infection tea or pregnancy tea, or things like that. And then on the far right, we've got a bunch of white bottles. Those are going to be our supplements, and they run all along that that right hand wall. And we divide it up into minerals and vitamins A to Z, multivitamins. We've got a little section for people's digestive tract, a section for people's adrenals and thyroid and endocrine kind of systems, for women's health, for men's health, for children's health, pregnancy, all kinds of things. So you can get all kinds of things in the apothecary. And then people who just wander in the door and want to shop, we've got things like little aprons and tea mugs and tea strainers and all kinds of facial creams made out of herbal products that people homemade here in the community. Just kind of down to earth stuff.
Oh, that's lovely. So you've got locals creating a lot of your goods.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, nice.
And it's really fun because we set out with this mission to have our medicine be as sustainable as possible, but also the apothecary and where we gather these things from be as local as possible, so that they're coming from Colorado, New Mexico, Oregon, Washington, California, things that are as close as we can. There's a lot of herbalism that is out on the West Coast, where it's quite wet, quite hot, and things grow really well.
Where the Oregon grapefruit is 10 feet tall instead of our 2-foot version.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So if you scroll down, it's kind of our welcome page, and we welcome Dr. Lisa Pomerantz, and we try to offer medicine for the entire family, kind of blending that tradition and modern science. And I describe what a naturopathic doctor does here on our website. And then, of course, a lot of people use that old quote from Thomas Edison: "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but interest their patients in the causes of disease and how to rid them of that."
Continue to dream on that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you're describing some things here,
Well, yeah, if you go back,
I am always, so the idea of hydrotherapy,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to actually scroll back up because I love the picture of the apothecary there.
Yeah.
Do you use hydrotherapy? And if so, what the heck is it?
Well, you know what's come around recently that a lot of people have latched onto and has become popular is Wim Hof, the Iceman, has popularized a form of hydrotherapy and breathing techniques that can really stimulate the immune system and get the body going. Um, and hydrotherapy comes from a long lineage in many traditions, from Ayurvedic medicine and ancient Chinese medicine to ancient Western medicine. And so our hydrotherapy techniques come from old Europe to a great extent. And you know, if you're traveling around in, let's say, Hungary and Austria and Germany, you will still find sanatoriums where people will take a retreat. Like if they find out they've got a horrible disease, they'll go to the sanatorium and do hydrotherapy techniques, sit out in the sun, eat really good food, and you know, and relax, and you know, do some form of, you know, mind meditation kinds of things. And so the hydrotherapy part of that is really important. You know, it's something that back before antibiotics, you know, a high fever was probably the best thing that you could have to keep you from dying of a viral illness. And so old eclectic physicians, old naturopathic physicians in old Europe who weren't bloodletting and weren't using leeches would oftentimes give herbal formulas, give nutritional formulas, be working at a sanatorium, and be prescribing hydrotherapy. And one of the things, like if somebody has a viral illness, we're gonna, you know, put them in a hot bath, get their temperature up over 100, oftentimes up into the 103, 104 range. Because once you're over a 101, you're killing viruses, because viruses have to use our cells to replicate. So an antibiotic that's for the outside of the cell is going to be useless. So if we can just cook them out, that's a great approach. So a hot bath, and then have the person jump into a cold, icy cold stream afterwards for 30 seconds. And that just gets the circulation going. It makes the body try to warm itself up after that hot bath. And so from that, we've got a lot of things that have been developed over the last number of decades, and some of them are pretty wild. You know, some of the sanatoriums that started up in the United States, they started to use low voltage electrical kind of stimulations to the thymus and things like that with their hydrotherapy techniques. And if you ever watch The Road to Wellville, about the Kellogg,
it's great.
it is so funny. Holy cow! You know, they kind of poke fun at all that stuff, but it's yeah. There was
about Dr. Kellogg and Post that people know from the cereals, but so much more about their life. Yes. The Road to Wellville.
The Road to Wellville, and it's pretty funny. But you know, because the hydrotherapy techniques are pretty time intensive, and you know, we have rent to pay and all that kind of stuff up here, professional fees and graduate school loans to pay back. We usually don't spend, you know, the hour that it takes to have somebody lay on our table, you know, pile them with hot towels straight out of, like, you know, a really hot place, cover them with wool blankets, have them lay there for a half an hour, get really hot, and then switch out those towels for cold towels. and have their body warm that up while they're wrapped in wool blankets. But we'll give people the instructions, and we'll say, this is your homework. You've got to go home and do this or this. One of the easiest ones that a majority of people can do is a really simple one, where they stick their feet in a tub of hot water while they're watching Netflix or reading a book. And just 3 minutes with your feet in a hot bath can draw congestion down out of the head and really help upper respiratory things. And then you can add to that the strength of that healing technique by having an ice cold bath next to that hot bath. Stick your feet into that icy cold water for 30 seconds. So go 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold. You go back and forth 3 times. By then you're starting to equalize the temperatures of the two waters. But you always end on cold, so that you're stimulating the body to warm itself up afterwards. And that's a really helpful thing to heal anything that needs more circulation to the feet or needs more circulation to the head and the sinuses and the upper respiratory passageways.
And it's basically free.
And it's
which
free.
is lovely. Yeah.
And it's free. And then another one that people really like is the warming socks or the wet socks, where they just go from that hot bath to putting icy cold wrung out socks in cold water on their feet. Cover them with some wool socks that are dry so that you don't get your bed wet, and then go to bed. And during the night, the body increases circulation to the head and the feet, dries out those socks. It's almost like magic. And you wake up with dry socks and you have drier sinuses in the morning. And it's a really neat thing. So hydrotherapy can be that simple, or it can be as involved as, taking a hot bath and wrapping your entire body in a wet sheet and piling yourself with cold blankets, which can be incredibly healing. And most people are not excited about that one. So I rarely get people doing that bit of homework. But going to a hot springs or a place with a sauna and a cold shower, pretty easy things to do.
Yes. Thank you so much for describing that, because it's something that has been left behind in so
Yes.
many ways. And then, yes, the Wim Hof bringing some of that back into people's understanding. But yeah, it's a technique that for medicine it's just gone.
Yeah, it's true. And it really needs to stick with us, as does fasting and so many parts of medicine.
So I would love to talk with you about fasting and intermittent fasting, but I'm realizing so you had wanted to pull up the website. Is there anything else that I should navigate to here as you're going through?
Yeah, when you're asking about what we do, if you go to services, there's a little drop-down menu, and there's Lisa, Dr. Kim, and I. My head's chopped off. But if you there's a little drop-down menu, or there's little buttons there. Treatment methods. Just below that, yeah. So treatment modalities. There's our bulk medicinal herbs, a few of them there. But botanical medicine, that's going to be one of our main prescriptions. Oftentimes people will walk out of our clinic with either an herbal tincture or an herbal tea or an herbal capsule. Therapeutic nutrition. Oftentimes it's odd. We're oftentimes paring down people's supplements. We're trying to not have them on so many. Now that's going to be different. If somebody ends up going to a naturopath, they're like, hey, I really like Dr. Pollack's approach, and they go to a naturopath somewhere else, they might find themselves with a naturopath who loads them up with lots of supplements. So you never know what you're going to get. We try to minimize how many things people are doing besides just their exercise, their sleep, and their diet. But dietary recommendations, nutritional supplements, a lot of times we'll start people out with that really clean diet that I was telling you about earlier, where they go off of all the common acidifying and addictive things like alcohol, sugar, coffee, all those kinds of things, and refined foods, And then we take them also off of most of the common allergens, the biggest ones being dairy, gluten grains like wheat and spelt and rye and barley and all those things, and eggs. And then we'll add in other things that come up frequently on our food sensitivity and food allergy panels, which include things like almonds, come up a lot, and soy comes up a fair amount. Um, citrus fruits besides lemon and lime come up a bit. The nightshade family, so tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, eggplant, comes up a lot. So we take people off of all those foods that could create inflammation for them, and maybe upset their digestive tract, create skin rashes, create sinus congestion, create headaches and anxiety and depression, um, all kinds of things. And, just kind of keep it simple on that front. Try to keep it to the minimal amount of supplements that they need. And actually, that cleanse and detox 7 to 14-day cleanse kit. People will buy kits from us that have protein powder that is from pea and rice protein sources, with basically a multivitamin in them to help the processes in our body, especially like liver phase 1 and 2 detox pathways,
Right.
speed up their detoxification. So those cleanse kits have, things like, well, like there's going to be protein powders that are really good from Vital Nutrients, from Thorne Research, from Metagenics, all kinds of things. We tend to really like Thorne Research because they have excellent quality supplements, and they're not prescription medication price, that kind of thing. Which some of our nutraceutical lines are very expensive, so we try to steer away from things that are super expensive. But we also give people on those cleanse kits herbal capsules that help to protect and flush the liver of toxins, probiotic capsules. Here I am teaching microbiology for my first time this semester, and it's really fun to put people on a probiotic which crowds out bad bacteria and yeast and fungal species that could be causing problems for people. And then sometimes while people are on a cleanse and they're eating less, their stools will slow down. So we have, a capsule that kind of helps keep the bowels moving on a regular basis, that kind of thing. And we were just talking about constitutional hydrotherapy, something that stimulates that body's vital force and supports healing on all fronts. And anything that we can do to address that mind-body connection, because it's all one thing, we really work at doing. So oftentimes emotional and kind of spiritual balance gets thrown off, and that's part of a disease process for a person. And part of getting someone even motivated to make the changes that need to be made in the homework to optimize health. So let's see.
With
So
with the
I misread that
probiotics
other one.
and
Constitutional homeopathy, and then hydrotherapy. Hydrotherapy is down at the bottom. Constitutional homeopathy. Homeopathy is from, gosh, what was it about the? Forget when Samuel Hahnemann was in Germany. Was it like the 1700s?
I think it was the late 1700s, but I'm not sure. 1780 pops in my head, but I don't know if that's accurate.
Yeah, and some doctors were saying, hey, we don't really like this bloodletting. It's not doing a lot of good here. So let's try something different. And they saw that some toxins, if diluted to a certain point, would actually do the reverse of what the toxin did. So it seemed to stimulate the body's vital force and support healing. I think one of the beginning stories was quinine from the cinchona tree. The bark of the cinchona tree would, if you ate it straight, would give you this awful fever, and it just seemed like you had malaria. And so they tried diluting that quinine, that cinchona bark, until they got to a point where it actually cured malaria. it drove out the symptoms of malaria and oftentimes the malaria itself. And so they started experimenting with all kinds of things, from arsenic to all kinds of crazy things, and it's become this huge formulary of things that you can dilute and give to somebody in very minute doses and stimulate healing. Um, you know,
It's
being
magical medicine.
it's our magical medicine. It really is true, because it stimulates that vital force, and it's very specific to each individual that it's done on. So it doesn't do well in those double-blind placebo-controlled studies that are kind of the standard of our modern science. And so a lot of my medical colleagues will call it, just a placebo effect, but it's oftentimes much stronger than that. So even me as a science teacher, I'm like, I still love homeopathy, because it just has, it's one of those last bits of magic in the world, along with so many forms of energy healing. So yeah. So yeah, any questions about that?
Yeah. So a moment ago, you mentioned vitalism. Would
Yeah.
you describe a little bit about what that is, what it encompasses?
Mm, I don't know if I would do it justice, but I think of vitalism as being uh, it is one of the things that sets naturopathy and many holistic forms of healing, from homeopathy and many herbalists, nutritionists, people who practice traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, apart from our current Western model in the MD and DO world. And even my colleagues in the MD world who consider themselves functional medicine doctors are, a lot of times we call that green allopathy, because it'll be doing tests and then giving supplements to correct nutritional deficiencies. But in vitalism, that comes from so many holistic, backgrounds, we are thinking of the body as being, instead of a machine, thinking of it as being a living, intelligent, complex ecosystem and community of cells and microbes, and this mind, body, spirit that is not just the person, but reaches out into the space around us, into the ethers. Um, you know, kind of just like looking at our planet, we're this little rock floating through space, but it is in relationships to a sun. It is in relationship to a moon orbiting around it. Even when we look inside the cells and the molecules that make up our proteins, our amino acids, our carbohydrates, our proteins, those are made up of molecules that have protons, neutrons, electrons that are all in relationship to each other. And those contain an incredible amount of energy, an incredible amount of space and energy that reflects what's out there in that macrocosm of our solar system, amidst a galaxy, amidst millions of galaxies in an expanding universe. And so we look at this body, this mind, body, spirit, as being not separate from the planet, not separate from the energy that's inside of it and outside of it. And so we look at ways to address anything that is blocking that system from being at its optimal wellness, because since it is intelligent and self-healing, even a surgeon is going to recognize that the body is self-healing. When they make that incision on somebody's hip and pull apart the muscles to replace a hip or something like that, when they suture all that stuff back up, they're relying on the intelligent self-healing part of the body to heal itself, to pull all those tissues back together when those sutures are no longer needed. And we just take that to a much broader spectrum. And we believe at the core of our being that that every cell that's intelligent wants to heal. Every cell that makes up this organism of you and me wants to heal. And so if there's something blocking it, blocking that self-healing ability, we'll head down that pathway towards disease. So what we need to do is remove those obstacles to cure, to remove the obstacles to the self-healing ability of the body. And oftentimes that's very simple. And so we're kind of sleuthing out what we do with people. So that's kind of the idea of vitalism, is that unlike the mechanistic view of the body, the mechanistic view of Newtonian science, where all things tend towards chaos, that does not describe a living system or a living cell that is going to order things. Like in my own life, I like to have a nice orderly house. I like to have a nice orderly clinic and space to work out of. And I think of my cells and my body as being the same. It wants order. It wants beauty. It wants symmetry. It wants health and healing and balance. It wants me to live my best life. It wants me to crush it every day. And so, that's the idea of vitalism, is that this intelligent, self-healing organism down to the cellular level wants health. It wants you to live your best life. So let's get you there.
And just by supplying the basics and helping somebody to sleep, to play, to provide, delicious whole foods, and it allows that vitalism to carry on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you.
All right.
Is there anything else on the site before I take away the sharing so we can see you bigger than a little square?
Oh gosh. Well, if you go up to the top, I think the only other thing that I'd want to show people is just kind of about the doctors, because we just recently took some pictures this fall with Lisa, and here's Summit County in fall. So there's Lisa on the right, me in the middle, Dr. Kim on the left. And if you scroll down, we put Lisa first.
That's amazing that you did that.
we're building her practice, and she's just awesome. She's got a real passion for the mind body part of that connection, and so she's got a really neat story that has brought her here, and it's really great to work with her.
And it shows such a lack of ego that you put her forth. It's your clinic. She joined you, but she's there front and center for the time being.
Right. My wife, Dr. Kim Nearpass, Colorado native, who has been in the Peace Corps, worked in Ecuador. She did the same kind of gap years that I did in between undergrad and grad school, that kind of thing. And she's really focused on women's health. So she does most all the women who come in for PAPs and annual exams and menopause work, all of those complex things that happen with hormones in the body. Kim is really great with that. Awesome. I should say Dr. Nearpass. She likes to be called Dr. Nearpass. Dr. Lisa likes to be called Dr. Lisa.
And you?
Oh gosh, just call me anything. Justin, Dr. Pollack, Dr. Justin Pollack. And me, I'm originally from the West Coast, and had a lot of fun life experience. And and now I'm both a science and health and wellness professor at the Colorado Mountain College, and I'm in practice. So I'm the most part-time person here. So I put myself last, but but I really am interested in people's well-being, and because of my population here, the basics aren't enough a lot of times. And a lot of times we do have the people who need to come to see me are people who just, have a little something wrong. They've got a sensitivity or an allergy or some toxicity, or they've just exercised themselves into adrenal fatigue, or, that kind of thing. that just push themselves too hard. So, I end up dealing with a lot of digestive issues that have a lot to do with their sensitivities and allergies. I deal with a lot of fatigue that has a lot to do with infectious processes, anything from Lyme disease, and some of these organisms that are thriving in our now warming environment, um, and causing problems for a lot of people. To cardiovascular things and chronic diseases of all types. So yeah, that's kind of what drives me, in my practice.
And Lyme is a super tricky arena to work in, and you just have done some some additional studies or certification on Lyme.
Yeah, not any additional certifications, but definitely a number of years of continuing education, and been at Lyme conferences where experts from the East Coast who are right in the epicenter of it are, dealing with that's their entire practice. And here I'm only dealing with a few people who somehow got infected. I'm sure that, are you down in Boulder, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've heard of people getting infected down there.
Yeah.
In Boulder, and people who live here who have family on the East Coast, and it always seems to be that the Lyme disease just makes worse any inflammatory or weakness issues that people have, and so I'm usually working on those fronts. And being a doctor who doesn't prescribe here, I'm usually relying on my medical colleagues to prescribe some things that if I need them on the antimicrobial front. But I've got some amazing herbals from like the Byron White line, and then our own apothecary, just tinctured herbs that can really help with battling that Lyme back into remission.
Terrific, man, because it can be so devastating.
Oh my gosh, it really can. It's one of those organisms that just loves, sugars like we do. It loves energy like we do. It loves electrical tissue. So and since it's a corkscrew shaped organism, it drills its way into nervous tissue and just zaps people's energy. It drills its way into tendons and ligaments, and just creates all kinds of pain for people, and just really wipes folks out. So I've got my little ticks that I got at a conference, to remind me. my little poopy, for my little poop tests that I run on people and all those kinds of things.
We talk about poop a lot, don't we?
We do. We talk about poop a lot. Yeah.
So do you have, that's so much that you were just talking about, and I know that only touches the surface of what naturopathic medicine is, but do you have some takeaways that would serve most people well, some things that they can do in their lives?
Yeah. I would start with, since we're just emerging from these 2+ years of pandemic and all the hype about that, I would say, people should all be taking their vitamin D. There's, just in the last 10 years of teaching, I've seen the RDA for vitamin D supplementation go from 400 international units IUs, and now we've changed over to microgram equivalents, but I still use IUs to a lot.
So do I.
To 4,000 IUs for most adults, and a therapeutic dose, especially up here in Summit, and at the parallel that we're at, we're just not getting enough sunlight and skin exposure and warmth to get circulation at the superficial level. Most of the people I test, their vitamin D level, they're at 40 or below, which is like my cutoff line. I like to see them at 50 or above, not past 90, but somewhere between 50 and 90 on their blood test. And like even me, I'm taking about 8,000 IUs a day, and I'm like hovering around 45 or 50, and I'm like at that lower end of where I'd like to see people.
Yeah.
And so through the winter, I'm having people take more, um, and I'm oftentimes having people take that with vitamin K2, because that ushers vitamin D, brings that calcium in from the digestive tract and puts it in the bloodstream, where we can now put it in our bones. And the only toxicity of any sort with vitamin D would be the worry of calcifying things like atherosclerotic plaques in our blood vessels, or if we're not staying hydrated enough, the flow through our kidneys slows down, and that extra calcium could form kidney stones. It's a rare thing to happen with lots of vitamin D, but still, we watch out for it, and so I have people on vitamin D with K2, because the K2 ushers that calcium to where it needs to go, out of the bloodstream, into the bones, helping the immune system to balance. So that's something I think everybody should do, especially like here in Colorado, or any place north of here.
Before somebody was to take large doses of vitamin D for a long time, like,
Uh-huh.
and large doses might be 4,000, might be 10,000, but would you encourage them to have a blood level drawn, or how do you work that?
Yes, I really like people to do their blood test first, and it's so easy. Sometimes people don't work at an employer that with an employer that gives a health fair, but those typical health fairs where they can get their white and red blood cells tested and their lipids tested, seeing where their cholesterol's at and all that kind of thing. It's just an easy add-on that's maybe like $20 at the lab, and it's such an important one. So
Mhm.
I'm finding that my patients who have been vaccinated, boosted 5 times, and my patients who have like an optimal vitamin D level, the vitamin D level optimal patients are actually doing better through the flu and the COVID, um, than the vaccinated. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty impressed with it.
Yeah.
And if you're doing both,
It
great.
used
Just
to
whatever
only
it
be for
takes.
rickets and osteoporosis, and now it's like, whoa, we've discovered this whole world
Yeah,
of
this
vitamin
whole
D.
world of vitamin D.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, kind of like, okay, a little, uh, maybe TMI for me. I'm also a banjo player, and so I play banjo. I started when I was just a kid, but I hated to practice, and so I started going to music festivals, in my 20s, and I'd get to a music festival, and I would have played my banjo maybe 3 times a year, and I'd be like, why do I suck so bad at banjo? And then finally, my wife said, "Hey, let's go to Rocky Grass and enroll in the academy and learn how to play our instruments." And one of my teachers said, "Well, how often are you playing your banjo?" And I said, like a few times a year. I pick it up when. And she said, "Well, how many days in a year are there?" And I said, 365. And she said, "Well, you should be practicing your banjo 365 days a year." And that was just like a light bulb. I was like, oh my gosh, that's how you get better at something like this. And so now I tell my patients, how often do you exercise? And they're like, well, once a week, a couple times a week, I get out for a hike or something like that. And I'm like, well, you should be exercising every day of the week. Of course, I don't practice my banjo every day, and I don't exercise every day, because there's just like those days where you're going from 6 in the morning till 9 at night, and you can still go for like a 15-minute walk, but sometimes it's just like a little bit beyond that. So every day that you can, do something, even if it's like a little old dog walk for quarter mile or something, but try to do those core strengthening exercises that are so important, and get out and exercise every day. Take your vitamin D.
Okay.
Eat your
Lovely.
vegetables.
Definitely. Eat your vegetables, raw, cooked, doesn't matter. Just get them in. Just enjoy
Yes.
it.
And if you get stuffed up, do the wet sock therapy. The wet sock therapy is wonderful.
It's amazing.
It's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. And yeah, gosh, that was another thing that really impressed me when I was in naturopathic school. I met people who were like, we would all tell our story about how did we get into naturopathic school. And mine was, kind of a convoluted pathway. But one of my friends in my class, he said, I was run down and sick, and I walked into this naturopath's office down by Pike Place Market, and in Seattle, and this naturopath said, "Well, how much water are you drinking per day?" And he said, "Well, I have a few glasses of water every day." He said, "You need to drink more water. Just have like 2 to 3 liters a day." And all of a sudden I had more energy. I felt so much better, and he didn't charge me. It's like, I'm going to do that.
Because you're going, man, I should have already known that.
That's how we earn the big bucks, is tell people to drink their water, exercise, all that kind of stuff. Another friend in my class, he said, one of the naturopaths he saw said that, like, if you're sick, yeah, you can throw echinacea, elderberry, vitamin C at it, zinc, whatever. But it's kind of like throwing some Febreze or some flowers and some aromatherapy on top of a garbage heap. So first you just need to take away the garbage heap. And so a lot of times if I'm sick, a lot of times it's because, it was just Halloween and I had too much candy, or, my vitamin D is running low, or, I'm staying up too late studying for my microbiology class. And so all I have to do is just pretend I'm in a Japanese society, and I'm having miso soup for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I switch over to that miso soup. It's got those probiotics, and my tofu, and my vegetables, and my garlic, and my onions, my shiitake mushrooms. And I don't have any dairy, and I don't have any nightshades, and I don't have any wheat or pastries or anything like that. Just eat really clean, until it all clears out. Do those wet socks. And then you can add on that vitamin C and that echinacea and that elderberry. But the first thing is diet. Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have any books or websites that you love for people that are just moving into the field and might want to explore a little bit?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This many.
There's so many. And yeah, any book that is like some primer on naturopathic medicine is wonderful. One that I've got right here in my room that I was really impressed with is, a patient gave me this, Breath by James Nestor.
I just picked it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
The new science of a lost art of, breathing properly. So having people breathe through their nose as much as they can, even to the point of their experiments in this book on themselves is to tape their mouth shut with a piece of like sports tape, something that doesn't just like tear your lips off when you take it off, when you're sleeping, because a lot of us unconsciously go to that open mouth at night and snoring and sleep apnea and all that stuff. And breathing through the nose really helps a lot of things. And then of course, I get reminded of this every semester that I teach anatomy and physiology, and anything that has to do with teaching pH. The pH of the body is thrown off so fast by breathing. If we breathe fast, we're into alkalosis really fast, and all of a sudden our body we can pass out. We can get to the point where we pass out. But before that, we're numb and tingling and anxious and all kinds of stuff. So we can bring ourselves out of anxiety by breathing slower, even holding our breath. And then on the side of holding breath, we get acidic and very, very rapidly. And so that creates its own set of problems. But yeah, slowing the breathing, for people who are anxious, holding the breath, taking long breaths and being very conscious about it, that kind of thing. Wonderful stuff. Yeah.
How did we ever forget that? It's
Yeah, how do we
incredible.
ever forget that? It's just one of those unconscious things. Gosh, I've got so many favorite herb books. The one that taught me, 25 years ago, was David Hoffman out of England. I
Yes.
really love his new holistic herbal. Um, Boy, Joe Pizzorno and Michael Murray have written a number of like little textbooks about natural medicine. So those textbooks of natural medicine. There's a 2-volume series that's huge and expensive, but you don't have to do that. But they've got like a little kind of primer on that. Oh gosh, for people who are, with young children or families, Your Vital Child was written by a naturopath. Wonderful book about that. There are so many books on nutrition that I would say. Actually, a medical doctor, Elson Haas, out of the middle of California, discovered nutrition and said, so Elson Haas, Haas, MD, wrote this wonderful book called Staying Healthy with Nutrition, and then spin-off books like Staying Healthy with the Seasons, and just a beautiful holistic approach to nutritional therapies, and a great way to teach nutrition. Let's see. Oh, another
Healthy
MD
with the
over on the.
Seasons. Is that her husband or a relation? Elliot Haas?
Oh, that was Elson Haas. Yeah,
Elson. Okay.
Elson
Okay.
Haas. And then, gosh, over on the East Coast, we've got Joel Furman, another medical doctor who loves nutrition. He takes nutrition to an extreme of fasting and kind of intermittent fasting and all plant-based foods, and discourages people from eating high-calorie foods, which, living up here in Summit County where I live and people are really exercising a lot, we need our calories. So I don't necessarily fully embrace that approach, because I do have people eat healthy oils and healthy carbs and things like that. But yeah, things like that are really good. There's so many Netflix series that are out there now, like The Game Changers, about plant-based foods for even bodybuilders and weightlifters, to Food Incorporated, and The Biggest Little Farm. Oh, isn't that the most beautiful film ever? The Biggest Little Farm, about transforming agriculture and the way that we can do food in a very sustainable way. Things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of things out there.
Great. And then last question. Oh, so simple.
Yeah.
What? How would you describe health and or healing? Now, some of this you addressed with the vitalism, but this is a question that we're carrying on with everybody through the semester and just looking at different ideas of health and healing.
Oh, I love it. Well, I think of health as being so individual. For one person, health is going to be, maybe running the Leadville 100 and accomplishing some goal like that. For another person, it might be being able to, go down the block to a Broadway show and, just experience live performance and, things like that, or being able to travel, or, being able to raise healthy children, or living in a clean place that is way far away from any toxic influences of whatever they consider those to be. That's so I think it's so individual. For myself, I just think of it as any combination of ways that my mind, body, and spirit can be connected, and living my best life, crushing it um, and I'd say healing is getting back to that place where there are no obstacles to our ability to have the mind, body, and spirit organism functioning optimally, living your best life, and doing the things that you want to do. And hopefully, part of living your best life is helping others. I think that that's one of the things that gives us a great sense of purpose, and allows us to be able to feel good. Is, you know, a lot of the happiest people I've met serve others, and whether or not they're thanked for it or even recognized for it, it's a way to be happy, to find fulfillment in life, and in being fulfilled, then we can be thankful. And I think part of a healthy attitude is having gratitude. So a deep sense of thankfulness for being able to wake up and draw another breath and have another day, and have this amazing body that we live in, and live in this amazing planet, in this amazing universe, on this outer spiral arm of a galaxy that we don't know what's out there. There's so many mysteries and so many amazing wonders, that just having gratitude for it all, I think, is a great way to approach life. And I think it's a big part of health. So
I think
and then
as
with that, I'm very grateful for you having me come speak to your students. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm so happy to have chatted with you. And as you were just describing the last bit about the wonderment and the thankfulness, it just makes me think about living life as a child with that wonder that so
Yeah.
many children have, and just taking that into our adult world, and smelling flowers and climbing trees and just going out and big smile because it's really gorgeous, whether it's snowing or it's bright and sunny or whatever's there, but just like, oh, bringing that wonder
Yes.
into life.
Yes.
Lovely. And you described earlier how we can reach you. So that's there, and I'll have it in writing also if anybody would like to reach out to you. And thank you so much for spending your morning with us. Really
Well, thank you for
appreciate it.
having me, Anne. It's wonderful to speak with you, and talk about naturopathic medicine and vitalism and all these things that I love so much.